There's no understating how the concept of imaginary friends has found itself firmly in recent films because we've had films like If and Imaginary essentially explore two sides of the same coin. If explores the ideas of friendship and finding joy in the midst of tragedy through childlike wonder, while Imaginary flips that concept upside down and asks, what if there's something darker to uncover? However, for the Imaginary, it manages to take pieces from both of those movies and puts its best foot forward in what's only Yoshiaki Nishimura's actual second film following his departure from Studio Ghibli. The Imaginary is based on A.F. Harrold's book of the same name, following the perspective of Roger, an imaginary friend who has fun adventures with his human friend Amanda, who's facing her own troubles alongside her mother Lizzie. They're both dealing with the aftermath of an incident that forces Roger to be alone. However, he's able to find himself within a community made up of imaginaries just like himself, even though there's someone dangerous hunting those like him down, the eerie and Gargamel-like Mr. Bunting. From a visual standpoint, Yoshiaki Nishimura and Studio Ponoc have created such eye-catching environments, ranging from the normal human world that feels straight out of Kiki's Delivery Service or Whisper of the Heart, to the wild and colorful realities made up by the kids in the film. Each imaginated set piece has its own spark of life, cause there's this one set piece where Roger and his companions are on the moon in the middle of a sci-fi action shootout, and then there's another one in the beginning of the film where Amanda imagines this winter wonderland with Roger, and they just all pop out in so many creative ways. The biggest thing that I really seemed to enjoy in this film was how Yoshiaki Nishimura and the vocal cast really brought all these characters to life. Like, the designs of the abstract imaginary characters are just so cute. Like, there's this one character, Snowflake, that follows Roger around, and he's like a massive hippo. And then you have this like tiny skeleton character who only says one line throughout the entire film, who kind of reminds me of like the Kodama from Princess Mononoke. They make up the film's more comedic moments, which are like sprinkled here and there, but it really helps to keep the film's more lighthearted tone. However, Mr. Bunting seems to take a little bit of that spotlight, because I watched this entire film through the English dub, and I'm sort of planning to also go back and see how the Japanese dub was to compare both of those cuts, but I was kind of off-put by Jeremy Swift's voice, who actually reminded me of the clock teacher from Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared, funnily enough. But the character itself made for a pretty good antagonist. He's an old man who's been feeding on imaginaries for quite a long time, thanks to his silent imaginary friend, who he corrupted in order to gain more power. Speaking of imaginary friends, the film creates this system of the imaginary world in a way that's similar to If, yet uses it to propel its personalized narrative completely higher. Humans create these entities out of their coping in the midst of crisis, and once they grow up, the imaginary settle into the library, a community to keep them safe and to find new human friends. As such, it creates this great emotional element that's utilized to the fullest throughout this entire. This film blends its happy-go-lucky tone with a poignant, mature thematic undertaking that, in my honest opinion, beautifully balances the tonal and emotional darkness of imaginary friends. These imaginaries are meant to help us get through our childhoods and through those pains, as seen with Roger being there for Amanda in her time of need. However, we eventually grow up and return to what's basically reality, or hold on to them for too long that it just drives us to take that dream away from others. For the imaginaries as well, it's a case of whether or not they'll be able to find a home after their human friend grows up, or forget and wither away in the end, adding on to what I think is really complex layers in that film. In Amanda's case, her close connection to Roger explores this deeply, as she's essentially using him as a way to cope through an event that has changed her and her mother's life, even though her mother is coping with it through different means in the end. I really loved how this film is able to take an idea and expand upon it, especially in its first two acts. However, at certain points in the film, it can feel like it's trying to quickly decide whether or not it wants to be joyful or terrifying, which especially shows near the final third, as Roger and company have to get to Amanda after another incident caused by Bunting. It definitely feels like there were some tonal shifts throughout the film, both visually and musically, that had to be taken here and there to balance that out. But it also feels like with recently related films, it's not necessarily treading into new territory, but it's able to provide its own perspective in a way that only a medium like animation could bring to life. Thanks to these liberties, honestly, the film has more of an advantage by presenting these worlds and these characters through a story that young viewers can enjoy while older audiences can nostalgically appreciate. All in all, the Imaginary succeeds in carrying out its inspired narrative with some strong emotional beats and wonderful visuals. Yoshiaki Nishimura and Studio Ponoc have shown through this film they have what it takes to be the next Ghibli, even though they still have a few ways to go. So, honestly, I'm gonna give this film a 3.5, but I honestly recommend it if you need something to watch and you're just reflecting on your entire life, honestly. But yeah, it's a really good film, man, and I think you'd enjoy it.